So, so everyone knows, right? Like RE framework is like a very biggest word in RPA UiPath. So when you say UiPath developer, everyone will call it RE framework. So first, let us understand what is actually framework. Is this really a framework? See, framework is nothing but whatever the basic libraries or basic things required for you to code easily and reuse the existing libraries. That we call it as a framework. Like when you consider a .NET framework, it is a collection of libraries. Collection of libraries, and it provides these base libraries to easily code. Like instead of 100 lines, it will allow you to write 10 lines of code, which means like it is going to help you to reduce your effort in terms of coding, right? So that we generally call it as a framework. So then what about the RE framework? See why the people are calling it as a RE framework, because it is also providing you with a basic structure of the project when you select this template. But this is a template. It is providing the basic structure, and also it is reducing your effort to build your project. How? By default, you have exception handling, traceability, like how you can the logging, effective logging mechanism, which is like helpful for the traceable in case of any errors or something. Okay, and well organized code will be properly organized here. Okay, and what should we know before we jump into the RE framework? So what concept should we be aware of before we start with RE framework? Assets, use, dictionary. These are the prerequisites before we start with. And dictionary object we already covered in our variable session in detail, but we can have a high level understanding of the dictionary as well, because some new folks has joined for the training session, like project sessions. So we can have that session as well. And assets and the queues. So assets and queues are the most important when you consider building a process with the RE framework. Okay. And what are assets? Why assets? So assets, why we generally require an asset? You see, asset is nothing but a variable value which are prone to change, can be modified or updated, or can be handled from an external system, not from the code. Which means um, handling a variable values which are prone to change time to time, can be handled, defined from an external system. Modified from an external system, which is nothing but orchestrator. Can't we do and can't we maintain somewhere else other than the assets? Yes, we can. We can maintain these values in an Excel file and can be stored in some SharePoint or Google Drive or database. So we can maintain in any of these systems these values, not only the assets. But why assets? See, here, based on your requirement, right? Like you can modify your code to any external systems. It's not only with orchestrator assets. You can read from the Excel, you can even read from the text file, or you can even maintain in a JSON file, or you can maintain in an XML file. So it's up to us how we want to maintain it. But the maintenance on these databases and Excel and all these things will be not that much efficient way of handling. And also you need to build your logics to read the data from these systems. Let us suppose you have a process and two robots are executing it, right? And based on the robot, the values may change. The credentials, let us assume you are dealing with the username and password, and that may change from one robot to the other on a different machines when it is executing, right? There is a possibility of having such scenarios. So in that case, it will be hard for you to manage your details from a database or an Excel or somewhere. You can do that, but you need to write a lot of complex logic. But here, orchestrator assets are going to provide you a very easy way of organizing or managing the values which are expected to change from system to system, environment to environment, and time to time. Okay. So that is the reason for which we prefer to have an assets. So what are the different types of assets we have? There will be four types. There will be four types of assets available. One is text, which is nothing but a string, and number, and boolean, and credential. So these are the four different types of assets we have with UiPath Orchestrator. See, for text, number, boolean will have a single value, whereas credential will have two values. So when you are trying inputting of the data or reading of the data from assets, for all these three type of assets, you will be having only single value. When you say text, it is only text. When you say number, it is only number. When you say boolean, it is true or a false. But when it comes to the credentials, you have username and password. And this password is encrypted. You cannot read out the password. So these are the four different types of assets. And in that, three are like single values where you have only one value. When you are creating the asset or when you are reading the asset, also you will be having only one value of it. But when it comes to the credentials, you will have two values. And now what activities do we have in UiPath for this? And before go for that, uh, yeah, we will discuss that. So what activities do we have in UiPath for assets? Okay. What activities do we have in UiPath? So let me type assets. So we have get asset, get credential, set asset, set credential. So we have 4 activities to deal with asset values. Get asset, set asset, get credential, set credential. So we have these 4 activities. What does this get asset will do? Reads the asset value for text, number, boolean. Update the value, text, number, boolean. Here, this is to read the credential asset. Yeah, one thing I forgot to mention here, the prerequisite, right? Here we should say config file. Read the credential asset, and set credential is update the credentials. Okay. So these are the 4 different activities we have in UI. And let us do one thing. Let me go ahead and create one RE framework project. So let me open the config file now. So here I have assets, I have constants, and I have settings. Okay. And assets are the names. See, this name is used in code. Name in orchestrator. So whatever the name we created in orchestrator with which name we created in asset in orchestrator, we will be mentioning that name here. And this is whatever we would like to use inside of our code. We will be writing it here. And in case if we modify this column name, then we need to update our code. And in case if we update something in the orchestrator name, then we need to update it here. So this will act as a bridge between our code and orchestrator for assets and settings. And the constants, these are the constant values where we can update like number of max retries and all these things we can update. And these will be consumed by the robot when it is processing. And we will come to the retry when we are talking about the queues. But the rest of the things, right, we will not touch any of this. And these will be used to for a log messages inside of our process. By default, we have the logging mechanism, right? So these will be utilized in that particular process. And we will not be touching any of the details, whatever we have inside of these settings. In case only in terms of retries and all, we will be updating, but rest we will not touch any of these. And in case if you want to have screenshot some at some different location, we can change it because this will be storing it in the local folder like where the project folder is there, but you can have the exception screenshots somewhere else in case if you want to have, and you can change it. So the rest, it is not necessary to touch these constants. And we have settings. See, settings we have, like we will be getting these values and all, right? The process and all. So even along with those, the credential names we are going to store in the settings. We are going to write the credentials. We will be storing it in settings space, not in the assets. All the assets will go into the assets sheet, and only this credentials will go into the settings sheet. Why? All the asset names will be in asset sheet of config file, and credentials will be in settings file. The reason is, when you are dealing with the assets, in case if I have all the assets here, I can loop through each and every value. It's not necessary for me to look into that. And credentials I'll be having very limited compared to the assets. Assets I may have like 50 or 100, like that. There might be a possibility, but credentials I'll be having very limited values. And credentials I'll specifically call with the credential name. I don't want to loop, and it is not required. But in case of assets, right, I can loop it. And when I go separately for credentials and separately for assets, there is an option for me to loop. In case if I mention credentials also here, the activities are different. See, for other values, it is get asset, and for credentials, it is get credentials. The activities are different. In case for a credential, if I try with a get asset, it will gives me an error because it will not accept two out parameters, and it is expecting the activity to have two out parameters, right? So it is expecting to have two out parameters. That is the reason for which we will be explicitly maintaining in settings. And do we need to have only in settings? No, it is not required. We can add one more sheet, credentials. We can maintain it here as well. It is not necessary that we need to have it on settings. We can have one more sheet like this, and we can have it here. The only thing is the initialization state. The only thing is what we need to do is in the init state, init all settings, right? Here we just need to add the new sheet name, whatever we created. Just I need to add it so that now it will work. So this is how we can differentiate the set assets and the credentials. And now let us go to the UiPath orchestrator and see. So till now, guys, if anyone have the questions, please raise the hand so that I can. Do you have any questions, guys?
What is the reason for default the fix in the settings and constant only? Why it is
Sorry?
not Hello.
Can you be a bit louder?
What is the reason for that? Only like constant and settings are there in the sheets by default. Why they did not mention assets?
Assets,
Assets.
you will be explicitly calling inside your code. Like we'll explain you that going further. See, for assets, we will, we are directly passing the value because assets will be always in the asset sheet. That was the assumption. And inside of your asset sheet, you will be looping through each row. But here, for the other sheets, right, I'll be dealing other sheets in the same way because I'll be having, see, in settings, credentials and constants, right? This is my key and this is my value of a dictionary. Here in the assets, this will be my key and whatever the value stored in the orchestrator asset will be my value. So there is a difference in reading the data and adding the values to the config dictionary. That is the reason for which all the other sheets we will be dealing in a same way. And for assets, it is different.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. That.
Did I miss something to tell you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
excuse me.
Yes.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Please.
So in the asset is stored in the orchestrator, the bot can retrieve the asset from the orchestrator directly, right?
Yes.
So why to mention here in the config
Mm,
file?
yeah, it's a good question. So let me just put a scenario here. I have an asset name defined in the orchestrator, asset name, and it is having asset value. Okay. And later what I have done is I want, I created all these assets and like let us suppose 10. And later I got to know that I missed out some standard of prefixing or something. I want to give that process name, kind of accounts payable API underscore. And again, I need to go to the code. I need to go to each and every activity and I need to update it like wherever I'm using. Some see probably asset we will be having at one place, maybe, right? But
Yeah.
uh, for each asset, okay, in
Oh,
case if I'm directly calling from the asset, let us suppose I have 10 assets created, okay, and I need to have 10 guest asset activities. Okay, I need to use 10 get asset activities. 10 times I need to use the get asset activity. And in case if I updated this, right, I need to come to each and every activity and I need to update the name. But here, what we are doing is we are reading the data from assets and we are looping it. And here I'm directly passing the asset name as a dynamic runtime dynamic way. And it is not fixed. And I will be using this activity only once. I will
okay,
not be
okay. You're
repeating it for, yeah, sorry.
yeah, you're not going inside the hard coding part, just in the config file, you're editing that.
Yes. In case if I want to edit. And also in case if I want to pass this name separately, right? Then let us suppose if I have 10 assets, then I need to use the same activity 10 times instead of looping it.
Ah,
Easy, like, yeah, better way of organizing this code, we can say.
వాళ్ళకి ఇచ్చాను వాళ్ళు చెప్తానన్నా ఏంటనేది అయితే అమౌంట్ తీసుకొని
Okay.
తీసుకుంటున్నారు సరే
Let me come to orchestrator. So assets. Let me add a new asset. So here we will be providing the asset name and we will be selecting the type, whether it is a text, number, or a boolean, integer or boolean, and credential. See, if I select any of the values, I'll be having for integer and text, it is a text field, only one text field. And for boolean, I'll have a reader button, like even this is also one value output.
yeah.
And if I select the credential, it will change username and password.
Yes. Yeah, I have
Okay.
one more question regarding this credentials asset. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, this credential, so usually in the real-time scenario, do they store this credential in the orchestrator or how they're doing it?
See, there is different ways. Like, see, it depends on the organization to organization. I have seen they use the orchestrator assets.
Okay.
They use CyberArk. They use
So
Azure
this
Vault.
this CyberArk you said, no, that is all third-party credential store, right?
Mhm. And I have seen the scenarios where the people are not interested in storing any of the external applications, and they will store in the Windows Credential Manager.
Okay, okay. Windows Credential Manager. Okay.
Yes. So I have seen that as well. So it depends on like organization to organization.
Okay, okay.
Okay? And there are, I have seen that like they store in the Thycotic. They'll store in the Thycotic server and they'll give the ID in the asset. From there, like bot will fetch the details from the Thycotic server. So how they are managing their credentials previously, in case they are already using, like, see, the sharing between the credential, the sharing of the credentials, common credentials between the teams also will happen only based on Thycotic server or CyberArk. Like from these only they will store all the values. They are not supposed to store in any Excel or somewhere. If they are
Yeah.
already managing or maintaining it here in this, then they will not use the orchestrator asset. If they are not having this already in place and practice, they will use the orchestrator assets.
Okay. So they are
Okay.
already using the CyberArk Azure Vault means we can
They
fetch
will
from there
configure it. Yeah,
directly.
they will
Okay.
configure it.
Oh,
Okay. Let me open this in a new tab. Okay. So for all the credentials, if you see, right, we have something global value. And here add robot asset value. So let us suppose I'll give one text asset. Okay. So this is a global value. And this value will be considered to all the robots. In case if I click on add robot value, here we can select the user and machine, and then we can give the value. In case if that particular user is executing the process on the given machine, then this will be considered. Rest robots will consider this global value. Okay. So here we can have the assets per robot and global value for all the robots. In case if the value is as asset is assigned for a particular robot, and then that particular robot will take that value, and the rest of the robots will consider the global value whatever we declare. And why this feature and why it is required? See, in interviews, right, the people will ask a question. I have 5 robots executing same process at same time on different machines. Okay. And application credentials used by the robots are different. How can we achieve this? So this can be achieved with the robot per asset value. Whatever the asset we have, right? Add robot asset value. So based on that, it will. Let me go to the credential. See here, I can have this. I can put the credentials. And one minus here, I'll tell you, there is one thing we need to take care. when you are dealing with the credentials. So I'll
Path,
just
didn't,
give some.
didn't
Yeah,
understand your question. Come back again.
yeah, I'll come that. I'll come that. So one thing we need to keep in mind when we are dealing with asset credentials, especially if I give some values here, and if I click on create, if I come here and edit, see, we didn't change anything. Even though if you click on update, right, the password will be gone. So you need to click on cancel, or in case if you are clicking on update after opening this, your password, existing password will be gone. It will be empty. So that we need to take care. Okay. That thing we need to keep in mind. Every time we should not click on update unless and until if we are modifying something for credential assets. For other values, that is fine. For other date types, it is fine. The question is, there are 5 robots which are executing the same process at same time on different machines. And whatever the target application I have, for that target application, the credentials used by robot should be different. It should not be the same. And how we can achieve this? For each robot, we can assign the different values, right? Robot per asset value. Akash, are you clear?
Yeah, true. Yeah, got it. Yes.
Yeah. And okay. And here, one more question there will be. Which property of the asset cannot be edited? Type. If you see, right, type is disabled. Once you create an asset, you cannot modify the type. You can change the value, you can change the name, you can change the description also. But type cannot be changed. That will be also a question. Which property of the asset cannot be edited? Asset type. So asset type cannot be edited or modified. Okay. And what do we have? What else we have for the assets? See here, under the tenant, if you click on credentials, here you can add the credential store. See CyberArk, or see we have these many, not only Azure Vault, Azure Key Vault, AWS Secrets, and we have CyberArk, HashiCorp Vault, Psychotic Secret Server. So we have these many. So we can configure any of these secret servers. Okay. And so it depends on the organization, what they are using in their organization. We will be configuring that. Let us suppose if your organization is using Psychotic server, we will just configure it. We just need to configure the authentication between these two, and then it will work. This is how we can configure the credential stores in case if the customer doesn't want to use the orchestrator as credential assets. By default, you will be having orchestrator database, and later you can just add. Okay. So are we clear, completely clear about the assets and the credentials? Let me know if you have any questions.
I have one question.
Yes, please.
Which is the best practice to use data? I mean, uh, keep on changing the data, whether it is asset or like a config file.
Asset, it is always like if it is changing frequently, then I prefer asset, but it all depends again. See, who is going to update the data? Is the business users or is it by our team, the RPS support team? Because it is already moved to the production, right? So we need to consider these two things. Who is going to update the data? In case if it is a business team, I don't think like the business team will be. Um, it is a good idea to give them the orchestrator access and ask them to update the credit assets.
Yeah, anyway, they will not be having. Yeah.
Yeah. So in case if it is, see, frequently changing means sometimes business may do, because uh, the value whichever is changing, right? They will be clear about that. And in case if it is by RPA team, then I suggest to go with the assets, not with
Okay, so like
configurations.
if we have a more data, so you have to create a multiple assets, right? So the multiple assets may cause an issue sometimes. I heard that like that. So which is like at that time, if we have more data, that time we can use a config file. I heard like that. So just want to confirm with you.
No, it is not like that. See, it depends on
It's like we can place the config file in a business shared drive where the business will have access to the config file, and we
hmm,
can provide the a path of that business shared drive where the config file is available in the asset. And by calling the asset where the config file is available, we can get the values. But if it is
but here
if
you have a problem, you see, like simple way. Business, someone is updating that config file and the bot is got triggered, and you will be using workbook activities to read the config file. It will throw an error and your process will be
yeah,
terminated.
correct. But if it is like only business has to change anything related to credentials, however, we can change it in the asset only, right?
Yeah.
We don't have to
Credentials
use.
you should not. Credentials
Yeah.
you should not. But the question Venu is asking is like, in case if there are some values which are frequently changing, let us suppose in your process you are using some date range, and let us suppose it is
Okay.
frequently changing time to time.
Okay.
So in that scenarios he is asking. Credentials
So
anyhow like you cannot store.
every time you cannot go to like a data and config file. So right. So that's why
Mm.
I'm asking. So whether which is the best practice to use, and also like if I have more data, so what is the best practice to use?
So
So for that
Venu,
question.
let me just bring out a new solution on top of it, because your question is like when you're saying like you have a lot of asset values, right? Not a minimum number.
Yeah, I
So
think it
what you
has a
can
two
do is,
questions. Yeah.
yeah, what you can do is alternatively you can build UiPath apps to update your assets.
Okay.
Simple. Like you can filter based on the name. Like you can put all your filters and or you can organize what however you want, and you can prefix some values for the asset to accept, and all these things you can do it from there. So you will have the complete control of it.
Okay. Like if you have a bunch of data to update, like suppose if you had as a
Yeah, you can do that
100.
mass update. You can build that UiPath apps for that mass update, and that
Oh,
UiPath apps is having some good connectivity with the data service and the assets also.
oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, fine. Yeah, got it.
you can think
You
of
mean to
this
say
like
data
to
service? No?
no.
Sorry.
What I'm saying is like to bind some values, right? To drop downs or something. Let us suppose
Okay.
for some one particular value you want to
Yeah,
bind only two values.
that means like it anyway it is updating an asset, right? My question is like which is the best practice? So if we have
Asset
a
for
more
sure.
data,
For the
more,
robot to read asset for sure.
no, like it will like the orchestrator having some data like some date minimum should be like 1 GB, 2 GB, right? So like it will be if we have a more than 100 or like that data. So I heard
You
that like
don't
a
have any
config is
restriction. You don't have any
okay.
restriction on top of the data to orchestrator,
Okay.
because see there is a retention policy of 90 days, right? For every 90 days whatever the old logs will be automatically get deleted, and your storage if required, right, it will be increased. So you don't have any restriction on top of the data. in orchestrator for sure.
Oh, okay. So nowadays, most of them using a config file, so that's why.
See, it depends on their requirement. I'm saying, right? Like who want to
Mm.
update the data, how they doesn't want to give the access of orchestrator to the people like who are like doing this updation of these values. So there will be multiple reasons behind, and see, there might be some reasons like why they are saying in that way. And we
Yeah.
developed a couple of UiPath apps to see the bot coverage and all. So it all depends on their solution design and their the reasons whatever they have at that particular moment.
Yeah. So anyway, business, they cannot do it. Mostly support people or some admin team, they will do mainly, right? So
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, got it. Thank you.
Yeah. So any more questions, guys?
I have a real-time scenario doubt. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so my bot should be able to read a CSV file,
Mm-hmm.
but the size of the file is more than 2 GB.
Mm-hmm.
So during the development, we were able to test in our development environment in the machine which is having 16 GB RAM.
Mm-hmm.
But when we have moved into the production, the bot is not able to read that Excel file, and it is throwing an error like it is more than the exceeding limit of data. I mean, like it's more than 2
Mm-hmm.
GB, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So because it is a CSV file, we cannot change the format, and if we disturb anything, the whole format will be disturbed.
Mm-hmm.
So is there any way to read that CSV file?
So what
Apart
activities did you use? Is it like read CSV or
read CSV,
Excel?
yeah, read CSV, read CSV.
Try with the Excel activities. Excel
Uh,
application scope and read range, because instead of like reading it from backend, right? Backend, when you are trying to read, it will go as a stream, and because of that, it is taking time the machine, and the stream will take time, and because of that, like you may get at this error. And try with the Excel application scope and see if the format is remaining same, then that will be great. If not, what you can do is the CSV format, whatever you have, right? You can split
mhm.
this file with C# program. Like you can write a C# program to split this particular file into multiple files, and you can read one after the other.
Using C# program. Okay.
Yes, you can split this file.
Okay. Okay.
There is a possibility. So try these two, explore these two options. One is first is like to read with Excel application activities, and the
Okay.
second is try splitting this file into multiple files.
And also we can use SQL also, right?
Mm,
SQL to read.
yes, we can use the SQL ODBC. We can configure it in the ODBC, and we can get it.
Okay. Okay. I have no idea like this SQL and ODBC. Uh,
Normally we will
I,
do like a Excel to database. Like if we have a bunch of data, so we can one option for that, I think, right?
See here
okay.
you have, right, like XLS, and you can try with configuring this. Like click on add, and here
Okay.
I think CSV will not support here. It is asking. Oh, yeah, here
It is,
we have
yeah. Microsoft Extra.
CSV. Yes. And we can just give the names, and we can provide the file also. So you can explore these
Okay.
options.
So
Oh,
the to read the bunch of the data, so only SQL option or splitting the data into multiple sheets. So only those two options we have, or any other we have.
I don't think so. See, that these things, right? Like from situation to situation, scenario to scenario, things will keep on changing. So as of
So
now, I think only
the
these two.
so the main question is right interview in interview the main question it will be like that only. So just want to confirm with you. So
Yeah, but see, like in interviews also, like the people will look at like how you are thinking and how you are trying to give the solution, because
yeah,
that
yeah,
scenario cannot be faced by everyone. See,
Yeah.
you have faced one scenario. That scenario may not come to other people, right?
Yeah,
So
definitely.
just we will like the people will be looking at you how you are trying to approach that particular problem. How
Okay.
your approach is. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So now we are good with assets. Let us go to the queues. So guys, let me know. Can we cover this today or like can we push it for tomorrow? It's, I think we covered almost 1 hour.
So is it like a training or
Yeah, it's a training.
we got a link in one of the groups, so just want to check with you.
I think Raghava might have given you.
Okay. So like is it an ongoing training?
Yeah, it's
Right.
ongoing training, and from this session we are going like with a real-time projects. We are
Your
going
name?
planning to go with 2 real-time projects. One is the employee onboarding, and the other is accounts payable with document understanding.
Okay. So what is your name?
My name is Patrudu.
Hi, hi, Patrudu. Like, I'm having a doubt with the Action Center. So we have developed we have done one POC with regards to the Action Center, but we were not able to because as per the business requirement, there will be one capture reading. So every time the capture reads, the bot has to send the confirmation. I mean, like to approve or to reject. It will send what an ID to the Action Center.
Mm-hmm.
When you click on the approve, meanwhile the captcha will be changing, like it is getting changed there.
Mm-hmm.
So is there any possible way to read the captcha?
You can ask me any question other than the captcha. Don't ask me about the captcha for any time. Not only here, in any of the projects, right? If you have captcha, don't ask me any question.
But that is one of the challenging that we were facing.
In case if you have an audio capture, you can try it out, but for image capture, sorry. And even cracking of the capture is not legal, I guess. Let
And
us
Yeah.
one
talk
more doubt
as
I'm having.
let us talk
So
as less as possible regarding that.
okay, fine, okay, sure, no problem. And can I talk about SharePoint patching?
SharePoint, I never worked with that, but you can ask. I'll try to give
Okay,
some idea.
okay, fine. So we worked on a POC on SharePoint patching. So we need to install the patches based on the updates.
Mm-hmm.
Latest patches we need to download.
Mm-hmm.
Copy the files into a one shared folder.
Mm-hmm.
And from this shared folder, we should copy the files to a remote desktop. Like we will connect to a remote desktop, and from this shared folder, we will be copying the downloaded files to the RDP local folder.
Mm-hmm.
So till here we were able to do, we were using the computer vision activities, and we were able to copy the data from this to RDP. But the issue was when we were trying to click on the install, we are getting a pop-up saying that only can run as administrator. But we
Mm-hmm.
being a developers, we will not have access to the admin credentials, and we cannot run any UiPath as an
You,
administrator, right?
you you need to ask for the admin credentials.
But for
If they are
once they
not
will
going to
give.
give you, if they are not going to give you, tell them that like this process cannot be automated. Simple. See, there will be a prerequisite for
Okay.
any process. Not only here, you take any process, right? There will be some prerequisites which we generally call give it to them, and we will maintain that like who is the owner for the what and all. And we have some prerequisite to start with any process, like the permissions issues, access issues, and the applications or a software to be installed, all these things. So without that, you cannot automate a process. And here to install anything, right, you need to have an admin privilege on that machine. If the people are not going to give you the admin privilege, then we cannot automate it, right?
Yeah, correct, correct. Yeah, it was
So
asking
that
for
is the
the
only
higher
thing.
privileges.
Yeah, that is the thing. See, those are the called as like for your process to start.
Yeah, that is fine. So for once they have given the admin credentials, we have run the whole like whole code using admin credentials, but might be that will get expired once some updates happen in the group policy updates. It is getting expired, so they will
Then
give
you
only
ask them to
temporary.
keep you remove their group policies. That is not possible, but you can just tell them that like thus in order for this to be completed as expected and in proper way, you need to have these privileges, and in case if any group policies are there, please keep us updated um,
Okay.
uh, in advance, so that like we'll stop the process and we'll validate those whether the user is still again having the admin or not. Based on that, we will reinitiate the robot. See, there will be, see, I have seen some scenarios, guys. The process is running too good on the production environment, and some Windows
Mhm.
patches are released, and the process stopped working. And sometimes, like when in between the process is working, and you'll get a pop-up of like Windows is getting updated, so the process will fail. So it's a very clear cut indicate instruction to the infra team that for any changes you are affecting this environment where the robot is running, and the users accesses whatever we have, and we will give the list of all these things, and in case if there is a possibility of impact on these machines, we should get an alert. And they started
Oh,
sending it.
okay, okay, fine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And it is a POC, right? It is not necessary to consider all these
Yeah,
things.
yeah. So we have contacted UiPath team. They have suggested few suggestions like using the registry editor, but I don't think we will be having all the access to use the registry editor, and it comes under some data breach, is what.
No,
Uh,
no, 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 no. Registry editor you can have, I guess. Even I have the registry editor.
registry editor. We asked our IT team to provide the registry editor those things. So
No,
they
it will
said,
be there on all the machines. Registry editor.
yeah, but we might not have the access to edit it.
No, it is not like that.
Oh,
See, I
but when
have the
I
access,
asked
right?
our Yeah, but when we asked our IT team, they said if you do anything related to the registry editor, it comes under data breach, so you are not allowed to do that.
Okay, that is fine.
Okay, okay.